Of the day, this middle of the week, Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Today's tip comes from the amazing book, Recovering for Psychological Injuries by Bill Barton. If you haven't read this, please do. It goes way beyond just psychological injuries. And I'm not just saying that because Bill's here, but because it is really a tremendous book. And Bill Barton is here to read the tip.
Thank you, Michael, and good morning, one and all. Look for jurors whose life experiences permit them to equate substantial damages with a substantial verdict. Jurors who live on a fixed incomes or single parents who fight to make ends meet will believe that $10,000 is indeed big money. Here's your evidence that the jurors are going in the right direction, but a handkerchief's not proof that they'll go far enough. Now, I'd like to take that apart for a minute with you. There's a way to frame this that is in my book, and I'm not trying to shill that, but I call it you're shifting the measure of damages from a quantitative one or addition to a qualitative one. And that's very, very well illustrated by Mo Levine's story about who has lost more when you take away half from the beggar or half from the millionaire. Obviously, the millionaire's lost $500,000. But the beggar had so little. And that's, of course, found one more time in Luke 21, 1-4. I'm dealing with the parable of the widow. It's actually not a parable. It's a story of the widow and the mites. And it's a beautiful story. Now, here's where I'm going with this. And I'm going to give you a one-liner that nails this. When I pick a jury, particularly for people, say, that are on fixed incomes or live in a modest way, and I'm picking my words, I ask the jury panel, what is big to you and little to the world? Tell me about it. And then I become their scrivener and I walk up to a blackboard and I just start writing down what they say. And when you're dealing with a widow on a fixed income, she doesn't have much. And here's what her answers are going to be. I really enjoy working in my garden. It isn't much, it isn't big, but I give it what I have. I can hear things like, I enjoy holding my grandchildren. That's big to me. It may not mean much. And I write these out on a blackboard so that I am honoring their truths. Now, that sets us up for the as-is instruction, the thin skull instruction, your uniform civil jury instruction, not the aggravation of a pre-existing condition, but the previous infirm condition. They're not the same thing. And I want to emphasize that. So I think there's a way to shift in an honest, legal manner that's law-based from a pure quantitative, such as who's lost more, the beggar that's lost half or the millionaire that's lost half, so that it truly honors the fact when you have so little, it means a lot. And Mo Levine did a beautiful job of this time again with his stories of a person that perhaps only had 5 months to live and they were prematurely, their life was taken from them. What could have happened in the next 5 months or 150 days? He could have attended his granddaughter's high school graduation. He could have, and going down. So you've got to step back for a second and think about what it is that, and the way I think about this in my mind's eye, I create an axis. And one axis is vertical and the other one's horizontal. The vertical axis would be somebody's health. And 0 would be dead, and 10 would be an Olympian, to overstate it. And across the top, I'd have a horizontal, which in A would be the pre-liability condition, B would be the liability event, and C would be the post-liability difference. So that if someone was a 6 walking down the street before, and they were hit in the crosswalk and they became a 4, it would be 6 minus 4 for a difference of 2. That's caused by B, the liability event. Now, that's a very Aristotelian, Cartesian way of thinking about logic. But when you really study what's available to you, now, I actually do some things that I give credit to Marvin Lewis in his first book Marvin passed away, but his book in 1983, Psychic Injuries, he really gave light to this model where you take the damages down on the scale of 0 to 10. Because our instincts tell us we want them better before and worse after. That's because of the A minus C. Marvin would take him down to a 2 or a 1 and take him down to a half later and use the arguments of these qualitative losses as opposed to a quantitative loss. And here's what happens, and it's an unintended consequence. You're the most credible person in the room because you cannot exaggerate. Think about that right now. We spend half our career self-marginalizing by trying to expand the difference between A and C, before and after. Oh, you were great before, now it's terrible after. And then the other side just makes a living off of cross-examining our experts or our witnesses and make us look like we're exaggerating or gilding the lily. That's self-inflicted. There is a way to avoid that. And it's honest, it's moral, and it's legal. And I want to close with this. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody's religious persuasions, but I really enjoy that story of the widow and the mites. And in it, Christ had so little time left, and the Romans were dogging him everywhere he went. Any opportunity to accuse him of sedition or traitoring the Roman authority, they were welcoming. And so he had to speak in parables or stories. And he took this crew, the cock had not yet crowed, Peter not yet, and they were rather motley and unimpressive. And when they had a little time left, he came to this village in Luke 21, which is written by the physician, Luke. And they were sitting there, and there was this line of people coming by, giving their tithing and offerings to this god, the current popular god of the day. And people were just rich, and it was conspicuous, see and be seen time for giving. And the people's hearts really weren't in it so much as look at me and how humble and generous I am. And in this line, there was a widow, and she had 2 mites, M-I-T-E-S. And I actually have a couple mites in my drawer. You can buy these. And she put these mites out there, which are like pennies. They're about the size of the fingernail on your little finger. And when she was through, Christ turned and he said to them, "Who has given more?" And he gives them the answer. She has given more because she had so little. And there it is. It's positive law. It's in the instructions. You've got to ask for it and you've got to argue it. And if you think about where I started with this a few minutes ago, I talked about what's big to you and little to the world. There's your setup for closing argument right there. There's your case theme. And they don't dare come after and demean your client and argue how little she had, because you've already embraced it and turned it to your advantage. And I think this is done well by Keith Mitnick in his chapter 13, Owning Their Best Facts. It's about framing the case in a positive way. So I kind of gushed on you, and this is one of my favorite topics. And I just love that story of the widow and the mites, Luke 21, 1-4.
We love your gushing, and I'm going to share with you. It's also in the Torah or the Old Testament. There's a similar story. So interesting.
Really?
So
tell me about it, Michael.
I'm I'm embarrassed that offhand I can't remember which book it's in.
Sure.
So I'm gonna add it to the comments.
Sure.
But I very well remember studying that chapter, and it had to do with the tax collection and who's given more.
Yes.
And it's the person who has the least. So it very much captures the theme you're talking about. And what's brilliant about it, amongst all your other brilliance, is you're right that the jury expects us to be the plaintiff's lawyer and come out and say that the relationship this parent had with their child was perfect, or their body was perfect.
No.
And when you come out and say this parent and child had a bad relationship, what? You get their attention, and they were hoping to heal it, and they took that chance away. Now you're the credible one. Thank you so much for that.
Well, I'd like to put one, I actually damn near get teary-eyed sometimes at the privilege of being a lawyer and representing people. And it took me a while to get knocked off my pedestal, I think. And instead of looking, I actually honor people in all their shortcomings and their frailties. And I represent real people that cry themselves to sleep, that have failed. And you don't need to run from that. You need to kind of embrace it, because there's an ethnicity, an ethos, an honesty about that. And what you're really doing, apart from being a decent human being, front and center, is you're being an effective advocate. Less can be more. It's counterintuitive. So just think about that. And thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you, Bill, for being here today.
You bet.
Let's take a deep breath together and just be grateful to be alive this Wednesday. May the work that we do today, may our energy and our efforts and our time be spent to reduce suffering in the world. May our efforts today help repair the world. May we fiercely and compassionately advocate for our clients and champion their stories. I'm going to ring a bell 3 times now. This can take you into a meditation practice, into a prayer practice, or just remind you, it's Wednesday, wake up, go out, do good things, and have fun while you're doing it. Have a great day.